Hello everybody.
Hello everybody.
Long time no see.
It certainly
You're
is,
all
isn't it?
looking really well.
Yeah.
Well, happy Friday to everybody. This was Friday last week, which is why we're coming on today. It was Parliament Day. A very, very successful day. The weather was beautiful. So we put an order in for it, and obviously it worked.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the weather was just like a summer's day. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah, it was really good. And thank you to everyone who turned up for your support for that day, and everyone who couldn't make it but offered their support behind the scenes. We really appreciate every comment that we've received, and obviously the support for the people that were there and willing to get stuck in. I was so proud of everyone. Even Kathleen from AO Advocates was, give me a bunch of them leaflets, and she was handing them out. She got quite offended that quite a few people were refusing them, so she said from now on she's never going to refuse anyone's leaflet ever again.
No, because she took it quite personally. How dare you not take my leaflets?
I think ex-JWs are quite used to people not taking their stuff when they were Jehovah's Witnesses, so it's kind of like water off a duck's back to us if people weren't. But the amount of leaflets we took was it 1,500 leaflets?
Yes.
And we literally only came home with probably about 100
Just
leaflets
a few.
left.
Yeah.
So I'm really pleased, the amount of leaflets that were handed out. Well done to everyone.
Yeah.
Because-
Can I just add something in there as well, Danny, on this well done bit, and a big massive thank you. For me, seeing the people that did turn up, and some of them we've never met before, and actually sharing that day, and also the events that took place afterwards that we kept quiet up to this point, but actually just being in that team was very special to me personally. I met some lovely people, some very brave people who were facing their own fears when they turned up and started handing out the leaflets. And I just, to all, and you know who you are, I just want to say a very special thank you from me and from Cora for turning up and making our day.
Yeah.
You made that for us. You made us feel that we were part of a team, that you really cared about this. And so I just wanted to say that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
And there was a lot of people that were there that know us because we're connected on Facebook, but to actually be able to give you a hug in person and actually meet you face to face, it's a whole different ball game when you actually get to hug the person. So thank you for turning up. It was great. And we did say when Mark did the advertisement for Parliament Day just before we went last Friday that there would be a couple of surprises that we weren't going to mention on YouTube before the day because we didn't want anybody sort of ruining the day and finding out. And also was a big deal. We needed exclusive press coverage for the day, so it was kept under wraps as much as possible what was going on in order for it to not be leaked out to unnecessary streams of people knowing.
As you can imagine with something like this, there's a lot of preparation goes into making sure that this works smoothly and within the clockwork times that we'd set for it. And one of those areas was working very closely with AO Advocates and with Kirsty. Thank you, Kirsty, for the press and getting in contact with the press and making sure that there was a methodology. That's the word.
Methodical.
Get me teeth in a minute. But it was all done very professionally, and we did have a professional journalist on site, and that was fantastic. So we needed to make sure that was kept exclusive for the Press Association, and it worked really well.
It did. So thanks for everyone's cooperation on that. It worked really well. But what happened the day, obviously a lot of you already know because there's a couple of videos out already. Yeah. So well done to Steve. We loved your video. It was fantastic. We were like, oh, it's really good. I'm so pleased. I love the fact that people are making videos more now, and it's lovely to see new faces and hear new voices, and it's great. Yeah. So for those that haven't already heard and don't know what went on the day, the itinerary for the day was quite simple. We were going to meet at 11 o'clock underneath Winston Churchill's memorial statue, which is just literally by the side of the
Tube station, Westminster.
Yes, and also by the square, Parliament Square, which is where the protest was going to be happening. And then from that point onwards till about 1:45, that's what we'd be doing, is handing out leaflets, standing with the banner and making the awareness known as to why we were there and making our presence known, which we did quite well, thanks to Dave and his megaphone.
Well done, Dave.
Fun. Yeah, brilliant. And then from 1:45, we then proceeded to walk down towards Downing Street, where 4 of us went through the gates up to the door. 5 of us went through, but 4 of us went actually up to the door of number 10 Downing Street. It was Mark, myself, Kathleen from AO Advocates, and Nick French, who is an ex-Jehovah's Witness who was actually a survivor of abuse. And we handed in a letter to number 10, which was very good. Nerve-wracking.
Before all this started, Nick was already being interviewed as well, and there was a lot of preparation for that. And we thank you, Nick, for sharing your story to the press, because that obviously gives it the realisms. It gives why we're there in the first place, why this stuff is so important that we share this. And the survivors' stories are really what this is all about. It's about making sure that people like Nick, who's been an absolute vanguard here, right on the front line, sharing his story, and there are so many other survivors now that are coming out. That we call them the lions. These are the people that publicly. In fact, there's one that another story. But they're coming out there. They're talking. They're speaking. And what that does, along with the Parliament Day and everything else, we're hoping that others will be encouraged by this to come forward and to start speaking to the professionals. And Nick is a prime example of someone that's saying, it's okay to do this. You can come forward. There are people you can trust. We'll talk about that some other day as well.
But after we'd handed the letter into the number 10 Downing Street, that's exactly what we did next, was talk about that issue of people coming forward, because then we had an appointment to go back to the AO Advocates offices, which was very nice of them to put on some sandwiches and some drinks for us to then talk about whatever we needed to talk about. There was basically an open floor for anyone who had questions as to how the procedures go when it comes to bringing something like abuse stories and experiences to the attorneys and to law, so that they can take legal action. Where do they do? How do they do it? How do you go about it? What's the steps? Well, we would highly recommend, if anybody has got a case like this that they have been through, where they have been the survivor of abuse. It doesn't have to be just solely with Jehovah's Witnesses. If you've been involved in abuse somewhere in your life and you feel you want to have justice and bring this to the attention of the courts, AO Advocates, we would highly recommend them.
Sure.
One of the main factors of if you've been in a structured religious system like Jehovah's Witnesses, where you've been in a corporation that have got so many rules and regulations, the first step is you don't know where to go to get the help you need with regards to legal help. And one of the main things that can put somebody off from doing that is to have to explain their religion first, in order to then get to the bit where, now that's what my religion is like, that's why this happened to me, why it hasn't been dealt with properly, and move from there. They already know all that.
Yes, they do.
You can cut that complete explanation part of your religious standing and everything out of it and just get to the point that you need to get to. So that is a major
selling point. It's a selling point.
It's a relief for people.
You need to be able to say that, instead of expending all of your energy explaining why the religion does this and how it's insular and it's private and it's punishable by this if you say anything. The AO Advocates know all of this already. So there is no need to go into all of that detail. What you do need to do is just share what happened to you as a person.
What's interesting is talking to Kathleen and Tom about who obviously are two of the main people that we are in contact with in AO Advocates about this. They have read more Watchtower and Awake articles than I have my entire existence of growing up in the JWs. It's hilarious, the more we were talking about. But they said that they found it quite random going from an article talking about cooking to why you shouldn't masturbate. And that was there. They said it's random articles that they had to read, and they said that we read them all because then we could get an understanding as to exactly the mindset of the Watchtower and where they're coming from and why they feel about certain things the way they do. And she said it's absolutely, when you have to sit and read, she said it's like going into someone's mind that's extremely complex, calculating, and in this case manipulative.
Yes.
So it's interesting to hear that from somebody. Anyway, So if you have any issues or any problems, we highly recommend them. We will put their links to their website and their contact details at the bottom in the description of this video. You'll also see a few photographs and video footage of Kathleen and Tom and Kirsty all at work handing out leaflets, and Kirsty's mum was also there, which was lovely. She got stuck in too. But yeah, it was a brilliant day, and a couple of funny things happened. Mark asking everybody, does anyone have the time? And then as everybody was pointing up to Big Ben, just look up there, love.
It's right above you, mate. You know?
You're seeing a couple of pictures of how close we were to Big Ben.
I was such a plonker. I got everybody together and I said, how much time have we got left? What? Anybody got the time? Because I don't wear a watch. Anyway, and they all went...
I think because we rely on our phones a lot more, and because we had our hands full with other things, instead of just switching your phone on and going, it's 12 o'clock or it's 1:30 or whatever it is, it's automatic to say, has anybody got the time? But it was hilarious the way it happened. We were in stitches because there it was, Big Ben. And then there was a chap from America, and I think he'll probably end up making a comment into this video because he has under the other one, that recognised Mark. He was there for his first day of vacation. So, I've watched all your YouTube videos.
It was bizarre.
Very bizarre.
he came up and we had a hug, and he said, and I said, are you here for the Parliament Day? He said, no. He said, I'm here with my wife on our first day of vacation. And here you are, stood outside the Houses of Parliament. That's amazing. I was like, wow.
It's really good,
That was an experience.
Surreal.
I had another experience also with two ladies from Argentina, two sisters. One could speak English, the other one couldn't speak a word of English.
Not JW sisters, but physical sisters in real life. Yeah, like brother and sister.
Sisters,
yeah.
And they wanted to know what the leaflet was. So I was sharing it with them and reading it through. And she said, I need to interpret this to my sister. And I said, yeah, please. And so she was talking to her in Argentinian. And the other sister was intent, looking like this, listening to everything her sister was saying. And then she went, oh, no, this is no good. No good. Give me leaflets. And then she wanted our photograph taken with us.
And she wanted the banner included. She said, get the banner in. There was Mark with his banner.
So they went off with a few leaflets, and they were going to share them back in Argentina, because I said, yes, it's a problem over there too.
It's a worldwide problem.
Yeah, so...
But what was even funnier was, obviously we knew, because it's one of the main corners of London, it's a very busy area, very touristy, the JWs always have their trolleys and their carts, and that's where they tend to do a lot of their witnessing. You'll see more than one stand dotted around Westminster. And we did. When we first arrived and we were crossing the road, there was three sisters with their trolleys, and as soon as Mark started to talk to everybody once everybody'd arrived in a group as to what the day was going to entail, all of the other bits that we hadn't told anybody about, like Downing Street, and then going back to the offices of the law firm. The JWs soon sort of got their trolleys and walked away, especially when we all started putting the badges and the T-shirts and getting the banner out. So it was very interesting. But then later on, we decided to move across the road and stand just underneath Big Ben to hit a different side of audience, because that was where the main flow of people were. And the witnesses were across the road and by the station, which meant we weren't that close to them. But obviously they heard the tannoy of the phone. What do they call them? Megaphone things that we had with us, because Dave was telling them about no more two-witness rule. Jehovah's Witnesses stop hiding paedophiles. Not beating around the bush at all. Really getting straight to the point, which was
just cutting to the chase.
And so we stood there with the banner and we're doing this, and a police officer comes up and says, who's in charge? And I said, well, I can help you, officer. I'm one of the people that's helped organise it. How can I help you? And he said, I've just had a complaint. I said, all right. And I said, who from? And they said, some Jehovah's Witnesses over there are saying that you're shouting through a megaphone about paedophiles. I said, yes, that's right. I said, we're actually shouting about the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses hide paedophiles within their organisation, and all because they have a two-witness rule, and paedophiles are basically free to roam around, and they're not doing anything about it, so we feel very strongly about this. Oh, right. And I said, but by the way, I said, I'd like to make a counter-complaint that the fact that they are hiding paedophiles, and I'd like to ask them how they feel about that. Anyway, he tapped me on the arm, he said, carry on, my love. and he took a leaflet and walked in the opposite direction. So those witnesses who thought that, oh, how dare they talk about Jehovah's Witnesses in such a way,
how dare they?
I thought that the policeman was going to feel the same way they didn't.
No.
So that completely failed. I think that they have the impression that if anyone's speaking up against something, if it's their organisation, that everybody's going to feel the same way that they do. And that the casting Jehovah's name in a bad light or the organisation in a bad light is a complete and utter no-no. But
the thing is that with Jehovah's Witnesses, and because we were there, if I put myself in their place, and I would have felt exactly the same way they did. So this isn't a rebuke on them at all.
No.
We know exactly where they're coming from. This was a respectful education day, but at the same time it was loud, and it was meant to be that way because we need to get our message across, and we've only got a short time to do it.
Hence the yellow and black.
So, but their cognitive dissonance was kicking in big time, and they're seeing banners, and this would have been a complete assault on their senses to see this sort of thing, and I can see why they would be upset and indignant. Good. We're glad that they are. Maybe some of them, one or two of them, might go away and actually do some private research.
Because you know what? When I was a Jehovah's Witness, I didn't know about the paedophilia problem at all. I never even considered it to be a possibility of being a problem within the organisation. But it is, and it's huge. And it's not the fact that it goes on, because it goes on everywhere in lots of different sort of structures of the system that we live in with regards to religious areas, or even with doctors, and lots of different areas of life. You come across it because people are people. You get people everywhere. What I have a problem with is the fact that they are not acknowledging that they have a problem. They're burying their head in the sand, and they are not willing to do anything with regards to changing their policies, because without those changes, without them looking at that mandatory reporting issue with government, I hope they actually introduce that, because that's what would make them and force them to change their policies. Because without that, the Watchtower is not going to change their policies.
No, they're not.
Because they blame the government and say, well, because there's no mandatory reporting, we don't have to report them.
This is what the whole purpose of the day was about, was the two-witness rule. And to get round the two-witness rule is to basically bring in legislation within the United Kingdom to say enough is enough. That this particular group, and other religious faiths as well, should now come under a new banner, a new umbrella, where they have to, by law, report sexual abuse immediately to the authorities. That's why mandatory reporting to us is a no-brainer. So that's part of why the letter to the Prime Minister was emphasising this particular point, that if to safeguard children, we need mandatory reporting. So that's what's gone in, and we intend to keep that going now. That campaign is not going to stop.
No.
This is just the beginning of that. We've got a phase 2 that we'll be planning in the future. Lots of things that we'll keep quiet for now.
I mean, we're hoping to be able to get this video out this weekend, but it'll all be on timing. So we've got some footage, obviously, of the day, and I also want to try and squeeze in the letter and show that you've got the letter. You can read it for yourself,
you see the
one that went in. So if we can do it this weekend, we will. It's all based on timing, because we have got work and everything else as well, so we're trying to juggle it all up, but we'll get this out as soon as we possibly can. And so it's all exciting stuff. There's lots of things happening in the future. We've got tons of things that we're actually involved with at the moment, which we can't talk about now, but we will in when the time is right. But it's all exciting, and it's all really good news with regards to the way that the whole ex-Jehovah's Witness community is acting and pulling together in a teamwork fashion to bring down the Watchtower's false prophecies and bring attention to all of its policies
these doctrines.
That hide the paedophiles.
And one that many of us feel very passionate about, and I know Carl does too. I mean, Carl, welcome to YouTube, by the way. Loved your video. And lots of us feel very passionate about children and the way that children are treated and the way that they should be safeguarded. And we see holes all the way through this two-witness rule. That's a passion all of us have. And we work very closely together, all of us now, and there will be many more of us joining. I am absolutely convinced of that, to get this stuff changed, because they don't believe that there is anything wrong. They're in complete denial. We will change it for them through the courts, through the law, and we will hopefully be able to be a bridging gap and to tell the survivors out there, It's okay to come forward. You can trust the people that you're talking to. This stuff is confidential. And that was my final message on this part of the video, is if you are a survivor of child abuse and you still feel that you need to have maybe us or some other of the activists to be a bridging gap, to broker maybe a first meeting with AO advocates, we can do that for you with complete confidence, and it will be completely confidential. We promise you that. But please come forward, because your life really does deserve to be free from all of this memory and to get the justice that you need.
And deserve. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Because without that, it's very difficult to be able to move forward.
Heal and recover.
It'll always be there in the back of your mind, and I think that this is a healing process.
Yes.
And it starts with getting help, and then seeing what they can do to help you get justice.
So all these activists out here, we love the children of Jehovah's Witnesses. We don't even know them, but we love them, and we don't want this to happen to any more children.
No.
We want it stopped.
Yeah. Absolutely. So hopefully this will go on to part 2 of this video on the same video, if I can merge it all together, and you'll see what kind of day we had.
Yes.
So everybody enjoy, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again soon.
Thank you for listening.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I was looking at it, sorry, I looked at it on paper, and I looked at it on YouTube, and it was, and yours came up with it. So I thought, and I've left 9 years, so the fear has kept me down, looking at anything for 9 years.
How do you feel now?
I've been cheated, and angry. That's yeah, I've still got a daughter and 3 grandchildren.
Good sizing. Westminster. Big Ben. Lots of people. Good lad.
Are you alright to stop there for a bit?
That's fine.
Well done, Bren. Yeah.
No more 2 witness rule. Watchtower, stop hiding paedophiles.
Child molested. Yeah, we're protesting against it. No! I want my sons back! I'm suffering, I'm a child molested! I am. Oh, yeah.
Sorry?
Just in case enough to stop Dion and Russell Oh my god, that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's...
There's a policeman outside.